Hello. So, this is communication in the bedroom. Communication in the bedroom is important. Not enough people talk about sex. I find that some women get embarrassed about it when there's nothing really to be embarrassed about. To have great sex, you have to talk about it, even during it. I learned this the hard way when I first started having sex. Men would try to do things that they did with their previous partners, but I did not like this. I would never say anything and never fully enjoy the sexual experience. When I started talking about what I wanted, even during sex, I was able to fully enjoy sex. I would have um, try to have a conversation before leading in. I would try to have a conversation before leading into the bedroom, but even in the bedroom, you can communicate without disrupting the flow of sex. You can tell them to go faster or that you need more foreplay. Make sure you say what you like because you might like something that previous partners didn't like. So, communication about sex helps you express your desires. You might not love talking about sex, but odds are you enjoy the actual act. That can lead to tension where you want more to express, but express less interest. So, communication about sex helps you express desire, explore your own fantasies, discover your partner's fantasies, find an intersection between fantasies, and learn more about yourself. Those are just the top benefits. Some more benefits that it has is communication can make sex safer, it can lead to more overall openness, lead to a better relationship, lead to better sex, and lead to more sex. Communication with your partner should happen before, during, and after sex. So, first we're going to talk about communication before sex. Communication before sex is incredibly important, but for lots of reasons. It might be the most difficult one. After all, when you start to get in the mood and hormones are flying about, while clothes are flying off, you aren't going to stop and having round tables discussion. That's why we say it is a continuous process. Talk about when you're not about, when you're not about to have it. Talk about it in the morning or over dinner or when you're laughing around. Talk about it when you feel comfortable and sometimes when you don't. When you talk, you'll get a good idea of hard limits and soft limits, which is important at any time, and doubly important when practicing bondage and BDSM. By understanding the fantasies that you both have and that you don't have, you can slip into them during the moment without having to go over rules again. Communication also helps you be aware of what each person wants to try. So if your partner has been hankering for some handcuff play, you can pull out those when you start getting into it. So, there are a few things you can do to start the conversation. So you can talk about other times you've been together. Give lovingly shared advice. Talk about your dreams. Talk about a movie or a porn you saw. Make a sexual bucket list of things that you'd want to try. So, now that we've talked, it's time to have sex. Okay, so communication during the sex. And of course we've talked about how you should always listen to your partner during sex and feel free to talk about what you want. Consent is continual, and especially when you're trying BDSM, you should both always listen for and to safe words as well as checking nonverbal communication. But there's more to communication during sex than saying yes and no. There is always helping to get each other from yes to yes, 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 and that's where these tips come in. During sex itself, which can include foreplay, we are often too quiet, shy even though we're naked. We don't want to tell our partner what we want or we need what we need them to do. So remember, when you're telling them what to do, the golden rule applies in the sheets as much as on the streets. So you want to be nice, be patient, be kind, be supportive, and be helpful. And then there's like a brief note here about dirty talk. Don't forget that you define each other. That you define together what is sexy. Some couples love dirty talk, some don't. So some tips for this is to listen. That should be obvious, but it's hard for every gender when they are worked up. Hear what they are telling you. Take advice on good faith and be happy. So the last thing I have is communication after sex. Sometimes when we talk about communication after sex, people think it is like a post-game show. We now go for the studio where Howie and Coach will break down Annie's pegging technique. Exclusive interviews with Daniel. That's a little much. You don't need to break down the blow-by-blow right after you finish. But you can talk about what you liked and what really worked for you. Remember, of course, that after sex, emotions are heightened, and that the ebbing of adrenaline and endorphins means that you aren't in the perfect emotional state to talk. So what this is saying is just sometimes afterwards, it's good to have that conversation of what worked and what didn't. So, like, say you tried something new and you're like, during. But then afterwards, you're like, okay, I didn't really like that as much as I thought I would. That conversation needs to happen, or it's just going to keep going. So remember, the conversation continues continuously. It continues during each trembling and powerful act of lovemaking, and it continues afterwards, which then turns into before, and once again becomes sweaty and slipping. So communication about everything is based on understanding where the other person is coming from, and considering their needs and wants, and recognizing their basic humanity. That's what sexual communication is all about. Your recognition, your love, and your bond. It makes sex better for everyone. It makes an unbroken loop. So thank you for listening.